It's December 31st. Fireworks are lighting up the sky. Everyone around you is cheering, hugging, crying tears of joy. The countdown ends, a new year begins, but inside you, nothing. Just a hollow emptiness where excitement should be. You feel like you're watching the celebration through foggy glass, disconnected, numb. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. And this emotional flatness isn't a personal failure. Today, we read diving deep into the dark psychology behind why many people feel absolutely nothing on what's supposed to be the most celebratory night of the year. Let's start with the most obvious culprit: expectations. New Year's Eve has been marketed to us a mandatory celebration, a night of transformation where the old you dies and a new you emerges. But here's the psychological truth: forced emotions never work. Psychologists call this emotional labor, the exhausting process of trying to feel something you don't naturally feel. When society tells you that you must be happy, hopeful, and renewed, it creates what's known as emotional dissonance. Your authentic self is at war with your expected self. The brain doesn't respond well to commanded emotions. In fact, research shows that when we're told we should feel a certain way, we often experience the opposite. It's called psychological reactance, our mind's rebellion against perceived threats to our freedom. So, when every commercial, every social media post, and every friend tells you that New Year's Eve should be magical, your brain might just shut down entirely as an act of resistance. But there's something darker at play for many people. That numbness you're feeling might be anhedonia, the clinical inability to experience pleasure. It's one of the hallmark symptoms of depression, and holidays are particularly brutal triggers. Here's what's happening in your brain. Depression disrupts the dopamine reward system. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter responsible for anticipation, motivation, and pleasure. When this system malfunctions, even objectively exciting events feel meaningless. It's not that you're choosing to be unhappy. Your brain literally cannot process the experience as pleasurable. New Year's Eve becomes especially painful because it highlights this deficit. You can see that others are feeling something you cannot access. It's like being colorblind at an art gallery. Everyone's raving about the beauty while you see only gray. This creates a secondary wave of emotions: shame, inadequacy, isolation. You feel broken because you can't feel. And here's the cruel irony: the more you judge yourself for feeling nothing, the worse it gets. Self-criticism activates the same neural pathways as physical pain, compounding your misery. Now, let's venture into even darker territory. For some people, New Year's Eve triggers a profound existential crisis. The arbitrary boundary between December 31st and January 1st forces a confrontation with time itself. You look back at the past year and think, what did I accomplish? Who did I become? And often, the answer feels like, not enough. This isn't just disappointment, it's existential terror. Philosophers call it time anxiety, the paralyzing awareness of our own mortality and the finite nature of existence. Each new year is a reminder that you're 1 year closer to the end, 1 year of potential that feels wasted. 1 year you'll never get back. This isn't pessimism. It's the raw, unfiltered truth that most people suppress with champagne and forced optimism. Psychologically, humans cope with this awareness through denial, distraction, or creating meaning. New Year's Eve strips away those defenses. The calendar change is too explicit, too unavoidable. It demands you acknowledge time's passage, and for those already struggling with purpose or meaning, this can trigger a complete emotional shutdown. The numbness isn't apathy, it's a protective mechanism. Your psyche goes into lockdown mode to avoid the crushing weight of it all. Let's add social media to this toxic mix. On New Year's Eve, your feed explodes with curated joy, perfect parties, romantic kisses at midnight, inspirational resolutions. Everyone else seems to be living their best life while you're feeling empty. This triggers social comparison, one of the most damaging psychological processes in the digital age. Research consistently shows that comparing your internal experience to others' external presentation leads to depression and worthlessness. On New Year's Eve, this comparison is amplified and unavoidable. Here's the dark twist: you might be physically alone, or at a party feeling emotionally alone. Psychologists distinguish between social isolation and emotional isolation. You can be surrounded by people and still feel profoundly disconnected. In fact, feeling alone in a crowd often feels worse than actual solitude because it adds confusion to the loneliness. The feeling of nothing might actually be your mind protecting you from overwhelming feelings of inadequacy and disconnection. But here's where we flip the script. What if feeling nothing on New Year's Eve isn't a problem to fix, but a truth to honor? Consider this. Maybe the numbness is wisdom. Maybe your authentic self recognizes that midnight on December 31st is just another arbitrary moment. Real change doesn't happen because a calendar flips. It happens through consistent daily actions, through genuine internal shifts that have nothing to do with fireworks. The philosopher Albert Camus wrote about the absurd hero, someone who acknowledges life as meaninglessness yet chooses to create their own meaning anyway. Feeling nothing on New Year's Eve might be your first act of authentic living, rejecting society's script for your emotional experience. Some psychologists argue that our obsession with constant happiness and celebration itself pathological. The German concept of Weltschmerz, world weariness, acknowledges that sadness and emptiness are legitimate responses to existence. Not everything needs to be reframed as positive. Your numbness might be telling you something important. Stop performing emotions you don't feel. Stop letting external calendars dictate your internal experience. Stop believing that you're broken because you don't conform to manufactured joy. So, if you feel nothing on New Year's Eve, you're not alone, you're not broken, and you're not failing at life. You're having an authentic human experience in a world that desperately wants you to pretend otherwise. If these feelings are persistent and overwhelming, please consider reaching out to a mental health professional. Support is available, and you don't have to navigate this alone. The darkness isn't something to fear or fix immediately. Sometimes it's a doorway to deeper self-understanding. Sometimes, feeling nothing is the most honest thing you can feel, and maybe that's the real midnight revelation. You don't need permission from a calendar to begin again. You can start whenever you're ready. And until then, numbness is okay too. Thanks for watching.